we cannot be very hesitant to do that. Social, what people would say. Luther said in his book, a lot of dreams could not be fulfilled because we're all prisoner of one thing. What would people say if I do this thing? And that thing really kills dreams. That kills really our ability. Social pressure, social dissonance. Of course, we are very afraid to take risk. Failure is not acceptable, and we don't celebrate failures. The unfortunate part is, wherever you go, I give a lot of talks, and every way the talk is for the successful people. Nobody who's failed in their career or in their business, they never come on stage. Those are the actual people. We have learners. Those are the actual people who give you experiences. They are $1 million more expensive than the person who's successful. Failure must be celebrated. Failure is the learning lesson. Failure is not something, you fail and you do good. So that's another reason we do not learn, we do not change, we resist. That's why I feel like failure is change is betrayal, I believe. I don't want to change what I think. McKenzie said, 87% of the professionals resist updating the skill set. By this year, 85 million jobs will be lost, but more will be created. In my career, I remember back in early 90s or late 90s, a lot of people were afraid of automation. This is automation will take the jobs. Look where the wealth is. From 1990 today, the richest companies are what? Tech companies, not oil company, not the airlines, not the transportation, nothing else except the tech companies. So don't believe that it is going to change. So costing has, I'm just not going to list on it, but you often familiar with the Kodak, right? Nobody carries the Kodak camera? 1975, Kodak first invented digital camera. The company does not exist today. Because they believe that the digital camera is a toy, professional photographers will never give up the films. Wrong. They resisted. They did not, break the barrier of betrayal. BlackBerry. There was a time when from President Obama to Russian presidents to European heads, they all using the BlackBerry. iPhone came in 2007. They all said it's a toy. Only for the young generation, there'll be some fun with the BlackBerry today. Michael Azis, who's the owner of the BlackBerry, admitted in very crying voice that we failed to learn, we failed to understand, we failed to change. There was a myth at one time that men cannot run a mile in less than 4 seconds. That was a myth broken by athletes. Every year, every 4 years, when we see the Olympics, human beings break the human weight benchmarks. It means you always go into the big beyond. And that value was broken by 0.04 of the second. It was not a full second, but that's the capacity of the human being. So Kodak, 4 minutes Smith, BlackBerry, you're all science students, right? So let me give you an example. For 200 years, the physicists believe that Newton physics is the end of the physics. There's nothing more left in the physics to discover. That's it, fundamental truth is. 200 years later, Einstein came. Theory of relativity. Gave a birth to what? GPS, neural networks. Today, the AI, the ChatGPT, the DeepSeek you use is based upon neural networks. Theory of relativity, Einstein. So nothing is perpetual, forever. So the cost of not learning or cost of not changing has costed people and have costed humanity as well. So this is what I think my fundamental message today is. Don't resist change, don't resist. Go on with the betrayal. It's not a betrayal, it's a way forward. So in top companies today, a lot of people think I work for so many companies, so I believe that I'm going to give you a little mental barrier and lower it. Those companies are not outer space companies. When I work for Microsoft, IBM, Oracle, Huawei, EDS, strategies. Those are just common like you and me. Those executives are just like you and me. No change, nothing different. Really not big barrier we all put in our mindful things. They're all worried today. All big businesses are worried. You know who they're worried for? You guys. Because you know what you guys have? You guys have what I didn't have. If I want to start a business back in 1990, I have to buy servers, UPS, laptops, hire people. I cannot afford the compute. Today, you go and open an Amazon account, Azure, so you have all the powers which any multinational would have, as much you want, right? So let me give you some example. So if I give you a GPS, and I give you a mobile phone with a mouse, and I give you mobile data, can you build $1 billion company today? Yeah? Have people build it? Any example? Green, Uber, right? 3 things. They didn't have much. $1 billion companies. Any of them? Keep trucking. Airbnb. All they needed are 3 things. That's how the thinking process was. But today what they're worried about, they're saying that Uber is called Uber syndromes. You know, the companies are worried because they don't know their competition. And they know the competition can come and destroy it. Taxi companies always worried about other taxi companies. Hotels were worried about the hotels. They never worried about the Airbnb. Netflix, the DVD services were worried about the DVD services, but they never worried about that. So they are worried about today, Uber syndrome. The Jew people can do this. The companies are scared because most of the companies are out of business because some young kid figured out something, and that's figuring it out. So I'm going to give you a few tips. I wish I could have more time. I'm going to run out. I'm going to give you a few tips before I leave the stage. How do you unlearn? So I developed this called Red Pill framework. So 3 things are important: curiosity, empathy, and the courage. So what's a curiosity? The very first thing you need to know, awareness. You need to be aware of what I don't know. The very common saying is, I don't know what I don't know, right? And how do I know what I don't know? It's called awareness. And that comes from the curiosity. I'm going to give you an example from the Holy Book Quran as well. In Quran, there's over 700 ayahs which encourage you to be curious. The heat is the word used in that word. So I think in our Holy Faith book, our Holy Book Quran 3 has also encouraged us to be curious. Ask questions. Unfortunately, in this society, asking question is, if you ask your father, is disrespectful. Ask teacher is also disrespectful. Ask the judge is punishable thing. So don't go to that barrier. Don't let them do that. So curiosity, empathy. The curiosity is the very first thing. So be aware what's going on. If you not know what's going on, you will never find out what's the way towards it. So curiosity is the very first thing. Then to unlearn. So how do you unlearn, which is very, very tough thing to do it. The unlearning is required empathy. Empathy is not a sympathy, it's not something related. Empathy is me putting into your shoes, me understanding and feeling what you are feeling, me understanding what you want. That's what empathy is. Put yourself into that perspective, and that should know what exactly you need to know and how it can work. The very common framework is anything you want to unlearn, ask why I know this and why I believe this. And ask 5 times. Keep asking until you peel off everything and you reach the roots of it. Why I need to believe what I believe. Why I know what I know. That's the 5 wise question. Devil's advocate, assign yourself or have a friend who does not like you that much. Have a little challenge your assumptions. Have an open-minded, open-hearted discussion. Challenge it. Without challenging, You cannot peel off that, what you have learned, what you've been absorbed, what you've been known for so long. Then the relearning. The relearning is required courage. When I was doing my first programming job, it was 1977, and I was working for IT Sheridan in Silicon Valley. So, no computer background, and computer science background. Even a master's, I didn't have computer sciences, I was project management. But I had a fundamental concept. So I was working for a very top company, IT Sheridan in Silicon Valley. So they put me a project of auto lift. I'm not sure if you guys are too young for it. It was at that time, Lido kind of job, programming using AutoCAD and to develop AutoCAD solution because I was civil engineering. They hired me to develop a civil engineering software because I have domain knowledge. So I had to really learn the language to do the programming, but they hired me for being a civil engineer. So courage is an important part. There's a framework, I think if you guys have time, please assist this. It's called first principle thinking. Anybody know, anybody does not know Elon Musk? Anybody doesn't know? Okay, so, okay. That's the reason I put in a final example when I was going to make the presentation, I said Elon Musk. So, first, he developed a rocket which can go up and rocket can come back. Never happened before, right? Always rocket goes up, all the fuselage is wasted, and then one small unit comes back, right? He said, no, rocket's going to go up, rocket's going to come back. What I'm going to run, I'm going to develop a car which runs on batteries, no fossil fuel. So first, he uses called first principle thinking. So what's first principle thinking is? First, identify the assumptions. What assumption is taken? Assumption was rocket can go up, the fuselage which carry the fuel does not come back. He said, let's reject that assumption. We're going to bring the fuselage up, return back to the earth. I'm not sure I'm torturing the audience. Sorry for that. I'm going to hold this, okay. So identify assumption, then you know what assumption you want to change. Then you break down those components. Fuselage rocket cannot come on, or batteries has to be very much in a way that it can run faster, it can get longer, it more safer. This is good now, right? Okay, I'm just holding it because that's probably good. Then you reassemble those things. So break it down. First you identify, you break it down, you reassemble it. It's called first principle thinking. It's one of the, I think, the best thinking process, along with, we call it design thinking, or we call it system thinking, different perspective to have these innovative ideas where if I have a GPS, mobile data, and I have a user, can I develop a $1 billion company? Of course you can do, if you do the proper challenge assumption. Don't say it cannot be done, it has not been done, it never be done. It defies physics, it defies chemistry, it defies any universal rules. Don't worry about it, you'll find a way to do it. Of course, nobody said it's difficult. It's easier, it's going to be very difficult. Not going to be easy for you. So in disruption, I think that one of the things which nowadays everybody's living into it, they believe is hype. Say ChatGPT or DeepSeek, a lot of people believe it's no use. It's just a hype, it's just a learning model. You probably correct my English, that's about it. And we don't know. People, companies, the CEOs, they are thinking the biggest problem is we don't know. It's a hype, it's a trend, it's a tsunami. Can I utilize it now? Can I capitalize it now? So really, really challenging. So I'm going to leave you with 4 good examples. I think if you have free time, please dig it out a little bit more on it, how these companies develop a disruption model. Starbucks is a coffee shop. You know how much money they hold? They hold more money than many banks. And they don't pay any interest. Out of this chart, 2 companies, not a bank, not a financial institute, PayPal hold $13 billion. Starbucks holds $1.2 billion. Zero interest they pay. How do you do that? How PayPal has so much money and how Starbucks has so much money? That's a business model. They have your money, no interest paid. That's a business model. I'm gonna just leave you guys with it. Amazon. Amazon is not a trading platform anymore. Amazon is actually challenging the banking system because they have a power of data. They know who's buying it, what they are buying it, who's selling it, what they are selling it, what their credit limits are, what they need, how much they don't, what their credit ratings are. So all this data power they're utilizing it is actually challenging the industry in the United States. Think about it. Amazon breaking the bank. How many of you have Spotify? How many of you see Spotify? Right? I would see that movie Spotify actually on Netflix. It's a good movie to see how they've come up with that, break the barrier of it. MP3 was the revolutionary compression technology when it came to music. But even Apple could not deliver MP3 over the internet because the speed of the internet is variable. They found a magic sauce that even a slower internet, I can deliver a high quality music, which Apple failed. Apple Music here in download. Now you probably can stream it. So that is Apple sauce. That's a magic sauce. Think about it. We are more. I think one of the good things is for you, how you learn and unlearn. How many use waterfall model or Scrum or Agile? I'm sure all your teachers tell you Agile is better than waterfall model. This picture is tells $1 million story. Amazon books actually destroyed physical bookstores, Barnes and Nobles. It took them out of the business because people weren't buying the books online. Now, Amazon is popping up physical stores. Why? I want to give you a hint. Find it. Why Amazon is now putting a brick and mortar bookstore. They're the one who destroyed brick and mortar bookstores to start with. The reason why? Because they know which area, what people are buying it, so they can deliver them only things. And Barnes and Noble used to carry 30,000 books. They only carry 5,000 books. Very specific target data based on it. What's that? Nobody pays for it, right? Still use it? Plus two more. Last but not the least, small fish eat the big fish. DeepSeek versus ChatGPT. Okay? So think about it. What did they do which nobody else could do? And why they did it? And how they did it? Very smart move. They built on top of everybody else's work. Simple. What do you think of it? So I'm going to leave you a few challenges, I think, a few things for your, brain a little bit onto it. Continue learning, please. Cultivate curiosity to learn, empathy to unlearn, and courage to learn. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. If anyone wants to have an interactive session, Director Building Society will be having a one-to-one session 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in Incubation Center with Mr. Nadeem, Malik. Moving forward.
At just 20 years old, our next speaker has already left an impact on the global stage. As the founder of Survivor's Narrative, she amplifies the voices of those most affected by climate change. Her advocacy has taken her to the United Nations, TED, COP27, Oxford, Cambridge, and the University of Pennsylvania. Today she will be speaking about rewriting the narrative, Pakistan's fight for climate justice, shedding light on how storytelling and activism can drive meaningful change. Let's welcome Ms. Rida Rashid. I want you to imagine something with me today. Close your eyes and picture a land where river runs freely, where children play under the shade of old trees and their laughter is carried away with wind. A land where the rain-soaked earth tells stories of people who have lived in harmony with nature for centuries. This is subcontinent, or this is at least what subcontinent should have been. Now open your eyes and look around. What do we see instead? Droughts that crack open our lands, smoke that has turned our skies grey, floods that wash away not just homes but also futures. I was 7 in 2010 when I saw this contrast for the first time, not in a textbook, not in a news report, but rather in my own paternal village of Punjab. I watched as the river that had nourished our fields became a monster and swallowed not just homes, cattle, people, but also memories. Families who had lived on that land for generations were reduced to nothing but leftovers floating in muddy waters. That was the moment I understood something no one had ever spoken about out loud. That climate change is not just about nature, it is about justice. It is about power. It is about who gets to live safely and who gets to drown. We've been told that survival is enough, that waiting for foreign aid is enough, that fighting crisis after crisis is enough without asking why. But I refuse to believe that. We're told that floods are natural, that smoke is unavoidable, and that heat waves are just the price that we pay for modern life. We're expected to rebuild what keeps being destroyed, to breathe air that keeps getting worse, and to bury those who could have been saved. But what if survival is not enough? What if the floods that wash away our homes are not just natural disasters, but symptoms of something deeper? What if the smog that fills our lungs is not just a side effect of progress, but a consequence of choices made by those in power? What if the heat waves that kill our poorest citizens are not just extreme weather events, but rather a result of a system that decides who gets to live and who gets to suffer? Because disasters, I believe, do not strike at random. They follow patterns, and they follow the invisible lines that separate struggle from privilege. And yet we somehow never ask why. We never question the benefits when same communities are hit the hardest, when same lives are lost, when the same suffering continues to repeat itself every year. And so it really is a reflection of the system we live under, their failures, their priorities, and their willingness to sacrifice many for few. And if we do not ask why, we will be asked to survive again. And therefore, more than an environmental disaster, climate crisis is a consequence of systematic injustice, economic exploitation, and political neglect. It is a crisis of governance, of inequality and of whose lives are protected and whose are not. It is a story of communities forced to settle in flood-prone areas, not by choice, but because economic structures are made to reserve sacred land for those who can afford it. It is a story of laborers who collapse under heat and work in conditions with no safeguards because their suffering is factored in the production while their well-being is not. It is a story of children in low-income neighborhoods inhaling toxic air every single day while policies continue to favor industries over public health. The countries of the global south who contribute the least to the crisis bear the brunt of climate catastrophe, not as an accident of geography, but as a direct outcome of global economic and political systems that prioritize profit over justice. Because again, it is a function of structural power. It is a reflection of who controls the resources, who dictates the policies, and who is forced to face the consequences of decisions they don't have a say in. And as long as these systems remain intact, we will continue to drown, suffocate, and burn while being told to call it resilience. And we are expected to wait for aid that is promised in headlines but arrives in cracks, for relief that is funneled through bureaucracies that bleeds it dry before it even reaches our hands, or for justice that is spoken of in these international UN conferences but never delivered when needed the most. But let's make no mistake, the climate crisis is the crime of the global north. Their greed, their colonization, their industrialization have driven the world to a collapse. For decades, they have extracted from our lands. They've enslaved our people and polluted, all while hoarding the wealth that came from our suffering. But if we stop at blaming them, we're telling only half the story. Because while they lit the fire, it is our own structures who have left us to burn. It is the failures of our own governance, the corruption of our elites, and the inequalities within our own borders that make us devastatingly vulnerable to it. Because why are the wealthiest neighborhoods shaded with trees while the poorest choke on dust? Why do some streets get cleared within hours of rain while others remain submerged in sewage for weeks? Why are billions funneled into climate adaptation projects, yet the people who need them the most see nothing but abandoned plans? The truth is that the climate crisis does not just expose our inequalities, it feeds off them. So now again, close your eyes and imagine. A heat wave grips Pakistan. Many of you, including myself, are privileged enough to go to a hill station, retreat into air-conditioned rooms, or sip on chilled water. Meanwhile, the laborers, the ones who are building our roads, the ones who are loading our goods, or the ones who are stitching our clothes, are forced to face the sun. No shade, no cooling centers, and no medical care. Some survive with permanent medical health damage, and some do not survive at all. This is why the climate crisis is more than a scientific crisis, it is an injustice crisis. And it speaks volume about the cracks in a system that was never built to protect the ones who are not the elite. The disasters hit the most vulnerable the hardest because vulnerability is not an accident, it is design. A flood is not a natural disaster when it is worsened by unchecked deforestation and unregulated construction. A heat wave is not just an act of nature when it kills only those who cannot afford protection. A drought is not just an extreme climate event when water is siphoned off to industries while entire villages run dry. The truth again is that the climate crisis is not just about rising temperatures, it is about a system that prioritizes the comfort of a few over the survival of millions. And as long as the system remains, every disaster will follow the same script. And unless we dismantle these injustices, unless we stop pretending that the climate change is separate from the inequalities that define us, we will never reach a solution. For too long, we have treated climate change like an afterthought, a topic for conferences, or a problem shelved in forgotten policy drafts. But this is not secondary. It is not secondary when families go hungry because their land can no longer grow food. It is not secondary when entire communities are trapped in cycles of poverty, when each disaster wipes away whatever they have built. It is not secondary when it threatens the very existence of our people. And so this fight is not only for policymakers at the big UN conferences, it belongs to each and every one of us. To every person who has watched their city suffocate in smog, who has seen their loved one fall sick from poisoned water, who has felt the heat of injustice as much as the heat of sun. And so I ask you today, where do we go from here? Do we keep waiting? waiting for a world that has long profited from our suffering to suddenly become just? Or do we rise? We Pakistan or the global south do not need handouts of pity. We do not need to be saved by those who have built their empires on our backs. What we need, what we demand is justice, and what we deserve is dignity. And for that, we need to move from being passive recipients of history to becoming its makers. And to do that, we need to act. We need to act to reclaim our narratives and dismantle the structures that keep us in cycles of dependency, and refuse to be a token in a system designed to exclude us. And we need to decolonize not just aid, but also thought, power, and leadership. The question in your mind definitely would be, how do we move from outrage to impact? We do it by organizing, by building movements that are intersectional, global, and local. We do it by disrupting not just systems, but also mindsets, challenging the way power has been defined and distributed. We do it by reclaiming our economies, our policies, and our futures. We do it by demanding not just a seat at the table, but the power to shape the agenda itself. And we do not do it alone. This is the fight of every person who has been told that their suffering is inevitable. This is the fight of every defender of rights who has been silenced, of every community that has been displaced, and every voice that has gone unheard. And this fight has to be more than resistance. It has to be about reimagination. To create a world where justice is not a privilege, but rather a foundation. A world where we do not ask for permission to exist, but we define our existence. So I ask you today, will you rise? Not just in sentiment, but in action. Will you stand against injustice, not only when it is convenient, but when it also demands courage? Will you challenge the systems that exploit us, even when it means questioning your own privilege? Because the choice is no longer between action and inaction. The choice is between justice and complicity. So as you go home today, I want you to think, what side of history do you want to be on? Thank you.
Your insights have left us inspired, Ms. Rida. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. We've had an incredible lineup so far, and I know sitting for long hours can be exhausting.
So let's start with some humor and comedy. I would like to invite Mr. Faheem Azam to enlighten the mood.
Boys, इतना प्रेशर लेने की जरूरत नहीं है. आई होप यूर ऑल रिलैक्स्ड एंड एंजॉयिंग. एक हल्की सी चीयर से बता दें कि आप यहाँ मौजूद हैं. आप मौजूद हैं. दिस स्टेज इज वन ऑफ माय मोस्ट फेवरेट स्टेजेस बिकॉज जीपी के स्टेज पे मैंने परफॉर्म किया हुआ है. यहाँ पे मुझे बू भी किया गया है और यहाँ पे मुझे चेयर भी किया गया है. मुझे 3 साल बाद याद भी किया गया है. आई बीन अ मोटिवेशनल स्पीकर हियर एज वेल. एंड मेरे जैसे मोटिवेशनल स्पीकर होते हैं जो शाम को मोटिवेशनल स्पीकिंग करते हैं और अगले दिन सुबह जाके अपनी सीढ़ियाँ डाल रहे होते हैं. सो हम जैसे लोग होते हैं जो एक कारोबार शुरू करते हैं जिसमें हमें पता होता है कि ये बंद होने वाला है, लेकिन हम आपको एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप पे लेक्चर देने आ जाते हैं. एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप बोलने में जाते हैं. ये ब्रेक आ रहा है. सो हम बड़े भोले किस्म के लोग हैं, बड़े इंटरेस्टिंग किस्म के लोग हैं. मैंने एक बिजनेस शुरू किया था उसका इंटरनेट कैफ़े का. उस ज़माने में इंटरनेट कैफ़ेज़ नए नए आए थे, बॉक्सेस बने होते थे और मैंने भी DA खान में शुरू किया जहाँ पे कोई ख़ास कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं था. मैंने फैसला किया था कि अपने कैफ़े में कोई गलत काम नहीं होने दूंगा. फिर अल्लाह ने बरकत डाली और वो बंद हो गया. यही होता है. मेरे भाई ने कहा था कि फहीम ने अपने बिजनेस से बहुत कुछ सीखा. उसने कम से कम ये जरूर सीखा है कि दोबारा नहीं करना. वो मैंने ये खान में स्टार्ट किया तो वहाँ पे लोगों का एक प्रेशर, चूँकि नया नया इंटरनेट था तो लोग आते थे और जैसे होता नहीं है एंटर होके देखते थे कि अच्छा ये जगह है, ये वो जगह है जिसके बारे में हमने सुन रखा है। वो एंटर होते थे, ये करके देखते थे और दिल में सोचते थे कि अच्छा ये है वो कंजर खाना,
इसको सेट करो।
फिर मुझे बुलाते थे और अब ज़ाहिर है उनके दिल में जो चल रहा है वो